My name is Sophia, and at 27 years old, I found myself entrenched in a routine life alongside my boyfriend, Liam. We had been together since college, a relationship that was more about comfort than intense romance. Our frequent disagreements, ranging from Liam's reluctance to plan for the future to his endless late-night video game sessions, often left me feeling alone in our shared bed. It was clear we were both avoiding the inevitable conversation about our relationship's direction. We still cared for each other, but the effort to maintain our bond had faded with time. In contrast, my parents had been happily married for over 27 years, their relationship filled with affection and private jokes. They were my rock, the epitome of enduring love that I yearned for, even if it seemed unattainable with Liam. On the night of the accident, Liam and I argued over something as petty as undone laundry, a task he had promised to handle but neglected. Frustrated, I confronted him. "Can't you just do one thing you say you're going to do?" My voice was laden with exasperation. "It's just laundry, Sophia. It'll get done eventually," he responded nonchalantly, not looking away from his computer screen. As usual, the argument fizzled without addressing our deeper issues. Later, I was in the back seat of my parents' car, the comforting sounds of their conversation washing over me, a stark contrast to the tension with Liam. They were celebrating my mother's birthday, their happiness palpable. Suddenly, our world was shattered by the blinding glare of headlights and the horrific sound of colliding metal. Everything went black. When I regained consciousness, I was in a hospital, greeted by the sterile smell and the incessant beeping of medical equipment. A heavy sense of dread weighed on me as the nurse delivered the devastating news in a detached tone. My parents were gone, and my legs, which I had always taken for granted, might never function again. The harsh reality sank in, leaving me feeling profoundly isolated. Liam, whom I had just bickered with over something as trivial as laundry, was now my sole link to the life I had known before the tragedy, a life where my biggest concern was whether he would separate the whites from the colors in our laundry. As I grappled with the loss of my parents and the possibility of never walking again, despair enveloped me. The future, once brimming with potential, now appeared desolate. Trapped in the sterile confines of the hospital room, time seemed to distort, stretching on indefinitely. Eventually, Liam entered the room, his parents, Avery and Julian, trailing behind him with expressions of strained concern. The room was heavy with sorrow. Liam sat next to my bed, taking my hand, his usual confidence gone. "Hey, Sophia," he began, his voice barely a whisper, marked by sincerity and reflection. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." My voice emerged, tinged with uncertainty. "What about us?" I asked. He paused, our eyes locked, his filled with an indescribable emotion. "All of this, it's opened my eyes to how fragile life really is," he confessed. I wanted to ask him to explain, but my words froze, trapped within me. "I can't wait for the right moment anymore. It might never arrive," he continued, holding my hand firmly. "What I mean to say is, Sophia, will you marry me?" His question lingered, thick in the air, unexpected and profound. It was the farthest thing from what I anticipated, especially under these circumstances. I studied his face, looking for traces of the impulsive Liam I knew, who often acted before thinking. Yet all I saw was sincerity. His mother, Avery, stepped closer, her hands joined together. "We want you in our family, Sophia. We'll look after you." Julian chimed in quickly, "And it's not out of pity. It's because we genuinely love you and want to support Liam with this decision." Stunned, my mind raced. This proposal was both unforeseen and somewhat rash, but it felt like a lifeline. I gazed at Liam, seeing past the sometimes immature boyfriend to the man standing by me during the most unpredictable period of my life. "Liam," my voice faltered as I tried to organize my thoughts. "It's okay, Sophia. You don't have to decide right now," he reassured me, his thumb gently tracing circles on my hand. I thought of my parents, their constant love and support. This was what they would have wanted, for me to be cherished no matter what. "Liam, I'm unsure about the future, about us, but yes, The word came out more confidently than I felt. Yes, I'll marry you. A genuine smile broke across Liam's face for the first time in days. Avery covered her mouth, sobbing softly, and even Julian's eyes shimmered with tears. Moving into my parents' house with Liam felt like the beginning of a new chapter. The house was too large for one, filled with memories at every turn. I hoped Liam's presence would bridge the gaps left by my parents' absence, but his company often reminded me more of what I had lost than filled the void. He started attentive, always ensuring I had what I needed within reach. Yet, as weeks passed, the devoted husband facade faded. Liam spent increasing amounts of time at his computer, headphones on, disconnecting from me. One evening, as I navigated my wheelchair into the kitchen, I found him lost in his screen. "Liam, have you thought about looking for a job?" I ventured, trying to keep my voice light. The insurance wasn't covering everything, and the bills were mounting. He didn't tear his eyes away from the screen. "I've told you, Sophia, taking care of you is my job now. But I can manage during the day," I replied, a hint of frustration creeping into my tone. "You don't need to be here all the time." Finally, he faced me, his expression unreadable. There was a blend of annoyance and an unreadable emotion in the air as Liam's voice echoed in the kitchen. "What do you want from me, Sophia?" "I'm here, aren't I?" His tone caught me off guard. Simply being here isn't the same as being engaged, Liam. "I need more than a roommate. I need a partner," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. Liam stood up abruptly. The sound of his chair scraping against the tile floor filled the room. "You know what, Sophia? Maybe I need more than this too. Maybe I'm not meant to be just a nurse," he said sharply. His words cut deep, and I watched him leave, the door slamming shut behind him. Left alone in the silence of our kitchen, the heaviness of his words settled around me like dust. I wasn't just alone. I felt profoundly lonely. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thoughts of our brief honeymoon phase played back in my mind. The vows we once exchanged seemed like they belonged to another era. The Liam who had once promised to stand by my side now felt like a stranger. As the weeks went by, Liam's absences became more frequent and his excuses thinner. He was either out with friends or lost in a digital world that seemed to exclude me entirely. I felt like an unintended burden in his life. On a particularly difficult day, as I battled pain and the oppressive silence of our home, I heard the front door open. Hoping it was Liam, I called out, but his distant voice confirmed he was just stopping by to grab a few things. "Going out with friends?" I asked, trying to hide my disappointment. He paused, keys in hand, and sighed. "Sophia, I need some space, okay? This isn't easy for me either." I nodded, holding back tears. "I understand, but I thought maybe we could spend some time together, like old times." He avoided my gaze. "Maybe when things settle down." "I have to go." The house grew emptier with each day, a vast space filled with silence and the ghost of better times. It wasn't just Liam's absence or the echo of my parents' voices that made the home feel desolate. It was the small, sentimental items that began to disappear. My mother's beloved vase, a silver frame with a family photo, a painting that once hung in the hallway. One day, while trying to distract myself with memories, I noticed the bare patch on the wall where the painting had been. Confused, I called out for Liam, but there was no response. That evening, when Liam returned, I asked him about the missing landscape painting. Barely looking up from his phone, he replied, "Oh, that old thing? It was getting dusty, and I thought we could use the space for something else." His casual dismissal troubled me, especially when I mentioned, but it was my mom's favorite. He barely glanced at me, his attention still on his phone. "We can get another painting?" His indifference stung, and the growing void between us seemed to mirror the increasing emptiness of our home. At first, it seemed trivial, yet it turned out to be significant. The objects that began to disappear were unmistakable treasures that had been cherished in my family for generations. One day, I caught Avery, Liam's mother, red-handed. She was hurriedly moving about the living room, stuffing items into a large black garbage bag. "What are you doing, Avery?" I demanded, my voice tinged with panic. She startled, her cheeks flushing with guilt. "Oh, just a bit of spring cleaning, dear. There's just so much clutter here," she replied, attempting a casual tone. "But those are my things." I objected, feeling my pulse quicken. There, she soothed, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness. "We're just trying to make things nicer for you. You'll be grateful later." From then on, I watched her like a hawk during her visits, but the thefts grew more subtle and strategic. Whenever I brought it up, I was placated with assurances that it was all for my best interest. One evening, lying in bed, I turned to Liam, who was absorbed in his phone. "Liam, your parents have been taking things."
"My things," I said.
He didn't even glance up. "Mom's just trying to help. You know she's good at this stuff," he muttered. "Helps," I repeated incredulously. "By taking my family's possessions?" He sighed, finally setting down his phone and facing me. "Look, they think we should focus on the future, not the past. They're just trying to ease your burden." I wanted to explode with frustration at the blatant disrespect, but exhaustion overcame me. "This isn't what I want," I whispered, my energy fading. Liam reached out and patted my hand, a gesture that felt dismissive rather than comforting. "Try to get some sleep, Sophia. Things will look better in the morning." Unable to bear it any longer, I confided in Riley, my closest friend and lead therapist who had been aiding my recovery. Her visits were a cherished solace. "Riley, things are vanishing from the house," I shared during one of her sessions, "and I suspect Liam and his parents are involved." Riley paused, her hands resting on my shoulders. "Have you talked to Liam about this?" "I have, but he dismisses it, claiming his parents are just helping us by decluttering." I laughed bitterly. "But it's only my family's things that are disappearing." Riley's expression grew serious. "That doesn't seem right, Sophia. Do you want me to do something? Perhaps come by more often, keep an eye out?" Her suggestion ignited a spark of resolve in me. "Could you help me set up a camera or something to record what happens when I'm not around?" Determined, Riley nodded. "I'll bring something tomorrow. We'll uncover the truth." True to her word, Riley arrived the next day with discreet recording devices, which we placed strategically throughout the house. It felt surreal, like a scene from a spy film, but my desperation for the truth overshadowed the absurdity. A few days later, Riley returned with the recordings. We sat down to listen, and the voices of Liam and his parents filled the room, chilling me to the core. As I sat unnoticed, the casual chatter around me slowly pieced together a chilling plan. Liam's voice, clear and devoid of warmth, outlined their strategy. "Once she's fully committed, the house and all its contents are ours." His words hung in the air, a stark revelation of greed. His mother chimed in eagerly, her voice thick with anticipation. The place alone could fetch a fortune, not to mention the antiques. Pure profit? The room was cold with their calculated ambitions. Liam's father was next, his tone conspiratorial. "We just need to ensure Sophia remains oblivious until everything is set." Overwhelmed, tears welled up in my eyes. Here were people I had come to view as family, now plotting my downfall. Beside me, Riley squeezed my hand, her anger palpable. "We can't let them do this, Sophia. We need to stop them," she urged, her resolve as firm as steel. That night, after secretly listening to their scheming, my heart weighed heavy with their betrayal. Each interaction the next day, every smile and word from them, felt tainted, a cruel facade. The next morning brought a startling isolation. The usual city sounds were oddly absent, and a quick glance revealed why. The ramps that connected me to the outside world were missing. Panic seized me. "Liam," I called out, my voice tinged with desperation. "Where are the ramps?" "Oh, those old things." Liam feigned ignorance, suggesting they were being repaired. His avoidance of my gaze spoke volumes. "Thought it'd be safer if you stayed inside for a bit," he said, his words hollow. The reality hit me hard. It wasn't safety, but entrapment. Safer or trapped? I couldn't help but blurt out. He offered no reply, only turned away, leaving me seething with a blend of rage and helplessness. Later, when I confronted Avery about the ramps, her concern was as fake as her sweet tone. "We're just looking out for you, dear. No accidents, right?" she said, touching my shoulder with feigned tenderness. I recoiled from her touch, her deceit stinging sharply. I didn't realize needing ramps was considered a hazard, I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Avery's facade briefly slipped, revealing a flash of true intent before she regained her composed exterior. We're trying to help, Sophia. It's for the best. That night, enveloped in darkness and the weight of their betrayal, I felt more alone than ever. Liam was likely out, escaping his guilt. I reached for my phone, the screen a beacon of hope, and dialed Riley's number, the emergency contact she had insisted I have. Riley, I whispered urgently into the phone, they've removed the ramp. I'm trapped in my own house. Her response was immediate, a sturdy lifeline as she assured, hang tight, Sophia. I'm on it. We'll sort this out. Her determination was a small comfort in the storm swirling around me. When the doorbell rang, my pulse quickened as I made my way to the front door. There stood Riley, accompanied by a man and a woman dressed in neatly tailored suits, their expressions serious. They were members of a local lawyer group present to evaluate my living conditions. Next to them, my attorney, Mr. Dillon, held a leather briefcase firmly. Sophia, we're here to set things right, Riley declared, her voice firm with resolve, mirroring the determination I felt inside. Mr. Dillon stepped up, his tone businesslike. First, we need to clarify the situation, Sophia. I'll need to tour your home and verify it against the inventory list of your parents' estate. As we walked through my home, the service representatives scribbled notes, their disapproval evident at the missing accessibility features and the apparent neglect of my needs. During this, Liam walked in, his surprise clear on his face. Sophia, what's happening? Who are these people? He asked, baffled. I met his gaze firmly, letting him feel the intensity of my resolve. I'm reclaiming control, Liam. This is my lawyer, and with him are advocates for lawyer. They're here to make sure my living environment is safe and that my rights are respected, I explained. The moment Avery and Julian walked into the room, their confusion quickly turned to apprehension as they grasped the gravity of the situation. Sophia, darling, what is this about? Avery asked, her voice quaking. This is about my rights, my home, and the truth, I responded, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. Mr. Dillon opened his briefcase, revealing documents and photographs. We have detailed records of all items left to Mrs. Harper. It appears several are missing, he stated, causing Julian's face to lose color. Now, Sophia, I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding, Julian stammered. There's no misunderstanding, I countered, bolstered by the evidence Riley had supplied, including recordings that played vividly in my mind. We have more than just missing items to discuss. As Liam's parents exchanged worried glances, their facade as caring in-laws shattered. Liam stood silent, the reality of the predicament dawning on him. Riley stepped closer to me, her support palpable. We also have proof of conversations concerning your property and well-being, she added. One of the advocates spoke up, denying access to necessary ramps directly violates Mrs. Harper's rights. We will be taking action. As Mr. Dillon laid out evidence of their theft and plans concerning my future, I saw clearly the trap I had been in. But now the tables were turned. I was no longer a pawn in their game. I was the one in charge. Liam finally spoke. Sophia, I can explain, but I cut him off. Save it, Liam. I've heard enough. Avery began to cry, and Julian tried to comfort her, but their deception left no room for sympathy. The trial that followed was a culmination of all I had endured. The courtroom was stark, charged with tension. Liam and his parents, once posing as my caring family, now sat opposite me, clearly the adversaries they truly were. I sat in the courtroom, flanked by Riley and Mr. Dillon, who clutched his briefcase brimming with critical evidence. The room hushed as the judge peered over his bench, his eyes briefly pausing on me, before he spoke. Today, we review the evidence tied to the allegations of theft and deliberate exploitation of Sophia Harper, he declared. Mr. Dillon unfolded his case, laying out recordings, discrepancies in inventory, and powerful testimonials from disability advocates. The evidence mounted, leaving Liam's family visibly uncomfortable, ensnared by their own fraud. Avery's soft sobs played like a melancholy tune in the background, echoing the disintegration of their facade. "We never intended for things to escalate to this level," she murmured tearfully during her statement. The judge addressed them sternly. "You exploited a vulnerable individual. There's absolutely no justification for what you've done." Liam's voice shook as he stood. "I'm sorry, Sophia. It was never my intention to hurt you." His apology hung in the air, but it was too little, too late. The memories of our past flashed before me. "Sorry isn't enough, Liam. You chose this," I said, as the judge's gavel delivered a resolute sound, marking an end to the life I once knew. Liam and his parents were convicted, mandated to make amends, and barred from further contact with me. With Riley and a dedicated team's support, I embarked on physical therapy. Every slight motion marked a triumph, each step forward a testament to my perseverance. My legs, once immobile, began to pulse with newfound strength. One day, as I stood using the parallel bars, Riley's encouragement filled the air. "Look at you, Sophia. You're doing it." Her smile reflected in mine. Joy surged from a depth I feared was irreparably shattered. Thus, I progressed day by day. My home, once a grim reminder of my previous life, gradually transformed back into a sanctuary, a place of healing and growing strength.